my slides have appeared, which is great. And yeah, so in my presentation, I'm going to give you an overview of my work in, I guess, primarily working with the technology community and kind of seeing what they consider art and trying to communicate that to the broader public, and then also engage audiences that might not typically come to art events in the topic. So yeah, this is kind of a slide that encompasses what I do. So yeah, I like to use this term creative AI, which is, I think, quite popular in the technology-centric community to describe artistic projects that have been made with AI or frequently with machine learning and deep learning techniques. And yeah, so I like to look at this field, and I've curated some exhibitions. I have done one artwork, so I can call myself an artist perhaps. I put together lots of meetups and events for a community in London and also internationally for the tech community. And I've done some research on startups in the field as well. So I will start off with my one artwork. And I guess, yeah, I decided to include it this time around because when I first started becoming interested in the field, which was in mid-2016, I also decided to try and play with the technology, because I feel if I'm trying to present other researchers who do work in this field, it's always useful to at least know a little bit about what they're doing. And there's a conference in Berlin called Retune, and they had an open call. So I submitted an idea for a project, and unfortunately or fortunately, they accepted it. So I had to actually make the work in a very kind of short span of time. And because the time period was quite short, and because I don't really think I'm really an artist, I wanted to outsource most things. And I think when you use AI, it's quite easy to outsource the creation of a text or the creation of an image to the machine. And then, of course, you can also use, or I guess in this case, work with the human to get them to do something for you. So in this participative performance, which I called Play the Turing Test, I got a neural network to generate some text based on George Bernard Shaw plays. And because this is probably the first thing I ever did with a neural network, I figured that my skills in the generated text are probably quite rubbish. So it would only be fair that if I invite a human to write a text for me, then they likewise should not be a professional writer. And I had a Russian friend who works as a data scientist, but she likes to occasionally write. So she wrote me a text in Russian because that's her native language. I mean, in theory, it should have been in English, but that's how she wrote it. And we were both, I think, quite lazy to translate it in the end. So we used Google. And it translated the text, also leaving some kind of Russian words that it was unable to figure out how to render in English. And so I had these two texts, the Google translated one written by a human, and then the other one generated by the neural network. And then I did a few performances in Berlin at this Retune festival, where I came to the event and I had to find volunteers who would then take these texts, and then they would have to read or act them out, either as robots or as humans. And so there were two texts, the robot and the human one, and likewise two categories of how they could be reading or acting it, like as a human or as a robot. So some groups got the AI-generated text and had to act it out as a robot, and other groups had to act as a robot with the human text. And then the audience had to try and guess who had what type of text and who was acting as who. So it's a little bit complicated, but I think people kind of got it. And yeah, so I did this at a few different places. And I think normally when people perform the text, sometimes or frequently they would guess incorrectly. And I think that was also partly to do because, of course, when doing the human text, I cheated a little bit and ran it through Google Translate. So certain parts of it were in a different language, and that confused people. Whereas the machine-generated text was quite philosophical because if you're, I think in general they tend to be quite philosophical, and particularly if you're not quite skilled, the easiest way to get it to be coherent is to get it to be quite, I guess, similar to the previous text. So in my case, it became very philosophical. So yeah, this was my one artwork. So I can sometimes say that I am an artist. And now I will move on to what I do in kind of during most of my time. And these are various, I guess, event or curatorial projects. So one of these is the Creative AI Meetup in London, which I started in September 2016. And for this meetup, I think I've run about 25 events now, which is a lot for me. And for this meetup, I invite researchers who are developing the latest maybe image generation models or doing some relevant research in the field. And then I also sometimes invite artists to give a talk. And yeah, in London we have the proximity of DeepMind and Oxford and Cambridge, so I've been quite lucky in presenting a lot of their work to artistically minded or interested audiences. And on this image here, you can see there's a little robot with a guy who's kind of kneeling close to him, and this is from an AI improv performance where there is a human who is trying to do an improv comedy show together with a robot that reads out kind of AI-generated sentences. So this is always a very fun project. And yeah, I'm just going to show you one of the projects that I think has been a very recent highlight from the meetup. And this is some work by Scott Eaton, who is who is an artist and creative technologist based in London, and he's been making lots of beautiful kind of human shapes and figures with neural networks, and he's also been trying to make them interactive. So you can see this is one of the videos that he's recently posted. And certainly, kind of from my experience looking at a lot of this AI-generated work, I think he really has come up with an aesthetic and technique that is quite advanced. So, so yeah, this is an example of something that I feel I've been very lucky to have at the meetup. And then I've been doing lots of exhibitions at conferences. So there's a lot of hype around AI, and so there are lots of business conferences around AI. And there was one at the Center for Future Intelligence in Cambridge. And that conference was a little bit academic and focused on kind of AI policy and safety and research. And they asked me to do a little exhibition in a Cambridge college. And so I put up some work by Mario Klingemann and also some work by Jake, which is actually, I just realized, is kind of hanging on the other side of the screen. So it's probably watching me present it in a very different format, as is Jake, which is wonderful. And then I also did an exhibition at CogX. And I'm still, of course, a little bit horrified by this paintings on easels thing. But I wouldn't say this is my curatorial decision. I would say that this is kind of an instance of working with different, I guess, types of clients. And CogX is quite a big businessy-minded conference in London. And when I first discussed them about hosting an exhibition, partway through the process, I realized that they really wanted to print some things and put them on easels to kind of highlight the link between this technological practice and, I guess, fine art painting. So yeah, this was a bit of an odd way of presenting this type of art, but I feel it's also maybe good to sometimes make that link and, of course, to put this art into a public environment rather than keeping it just in a gallery. And yeah, one of the projects I particularly liked for this exhibition was this work by Fabrizio Poltronieri, who is a Brazilian artist based in Leicester, and he's been doing a project called Prophecy Apparatus, where he kind of generates various prophecies that he puts kind of on top of, I think, sci-fi-esque images. So this is, I think, very fun to put somewhere. This is actually put in the cafe area, so it's fun to kind of sit and get various incoherent and negative prophecies for the future. And then I did a project that was very much with the media art world, my one instance of collaborating with that world. And I did that, yeah, so I did Impact Festival in the Netherlands together with Alex Anikina, who is a PhD student at Goldsmiths, and Yasmin Keskintepe, who also worked on this exhibition and yeah, was here at ZKM. So it's a nice circle to be here myself. And yeah, this exhibition looked at how, this festival looked at how algorithms form structures that really kind of influence and control our lives. And yeah, I guess I just included a couple of projects that were part of this. And one of these was a little event I did at the Museum of Self-Playing Instruments in Utrecht before the festival. And I was very lucky to work with the museum because they have a very big collection of orchestrions, pianolas, and all these kind of old instruments from, I think, the 16th century onwards. And they were also hosting an exhibition on Robots Love Music. So they had this little guy called Shimon, who basically consisted of this kind of bobbing head with a xylophone or a keyboard type instrument, and he could play it together with the other musicians. And I have a video actually from the performance that I will show you at the end if I have time. And I think I particularly enjoyed this event because I feel performances like this are a great way to kind of yeah, engage the public, and also the setting was kind of very historical. So yeah, I'll show this later. And then for the festival, we also commissioned some work by Anna Ridler called The Mosaic Virus. And yeah, I was also very happy to see that this project and this commission was very successful, and I think currently it's being exhibited in the Barbican and in lots of different places. And what Anna did for the project was she went to Utrecht, where we were doing the festival, and she went there during the tulip season, taking 10,000s of photographs by hand, and then she labeled and categorized them and trained a neural network to generate images, kind of lots of these tulips, and also made a link with the tulip mania that was kind of popular in I think the 16th or the 17th century Holland, and the current hype we have around Bitcoin. And I know in Boris's presentation and exhibition, I think she's kind of further evolved the project to be even kind of more relevant to Bitcoin and the way those worlds operate. And then I recently had an exhibition in Zurich as part of a Women in Data Science conference. And this took this took place at an insurance company office, and the good thing about Zurich was that it holds, it has a Google office, and in that Google office there is a guy called Alex Mardvintsov, who is one of the co-creators of Deep Dream, which Memo showed earlier. So it's this kind of very bright and multicolored aesthetic. And because he was so close by, and he's also interested in continuing his practice, we managed to find some prints from him, which he made together with his wife, Jana Sam. And these prints are a little bit different from Deep Dream. This is more of a close-up. And from what I understand, in his current work, which he calls Neural Origami, he tries to make Deep Dream more abstract, and I guess uses similar techniques, but with a very different effect. And then we also exhibited some work by Helena Sarin, who is an artist based in the US. And what I really like about her work is that she sticks to using her own data sets, which are frequently drawings or kind of, I don't know, etchings or photographs. And she's very prolific, so posting a lot of new kind of AI-generated imagery from her drawings on Twitter. And yeah, so we included some of her prints, and in the one on the left, you can see a still life with some tulips that is, I think, a combination of a plywood texture with etching. And on the right, she has combined, I think, photography with newspaper, which you can kind of see in the background. So yeah, I really like Haya's work because I think she does have quite a unique style. And some more of my conference work with a robot in Dubai, which was quite nice company for this art. And yeah, now I'll talk a little bit about the festival that I'm currently doing in Leicester, which is my hometown. And yeah, so Leicester is a city in the UK, and unless you're into football, you probably would have never heard of it. But yeah, it has a De Montfort University, which I worked with to put together this festival. And we did an edition last year where we exhibited Pina Yoldas's Kitty AI project, and also an installation that tweeted you love messages. And yeah, this year we have a bit of a bigger project where we're engaging lots of different venues in the city, including 2 shopping centers, a library and a hospital, and the local kind of gallery and cinema center. And yeah, I guess to me this is a very special project because it's in my home city where there doesn't really happen much that is related to art, and also because we've been able to put a lot of this work into a public setting. So we have an installation by Mario Klingemann called Interstitial Space, and we've exhibited this in a gallery, and there's a kind of a camera in the middle of the space and 2 screens on either side, and if you walk up to the camera, it will start generating kind of colorful faces based on your face, and if you step away, then it becomes more blurry and black and white. And this is some work by Gene Kogan in the library, his neural channel synthesis, which is kind of very brightly colored and is in some ways a more advanced version of Deep Dream. And some work by Sofia Crespo, which we put in some shopping centers. And I don't know what is the situation in Germany, but in the UK, certainly a lot of our shops are dying. So sometimes I walk in a street in Leicester and half of the shop lots are empty. And so this is what happened in some of these shopping centers. So we decided to put some art there, and I think this is a really good way to engage an audience that is just going shopping and is not looking for art, but stumbles across it. And this is Improbotics. We had a performance from them on Friday, just before I came here. And so again, this was the AI improv with the robot. And now I'll mention this NeurIPS or NIPS creativity workshop that I'm quite known for in the tech community. So NIPS or NeurIPS is a very big academic conference focused on machine learning. I think last year it had probably 8,000 or 10,000 people. And I hosted a workshop, which is like a mini conference at the event, together with some friends from Google Magenta, DeepMind, also Goldsmiths, and Wellington University in New Zealand. And yes, I've been doing this for 2 years, and as part of the workshop, we've been presenting lots of papers that people have submitted around this theme of creative AI. So new algorithms to generate artsy images, or looking at how you can make this technology more interactive for creatives and various music projects. And as part of this, I have done 2 online art galleries of AI-generated art submitted by the community. One called NIPS for Creativity, which is from 2017, and one from 2018, which is called AIartonline.com. And so I think to me this is a good snapshot of AI-related work that has been made by the technical community, because of course everybody has their own definition of art, and I think a lot of this work has been a bit more technical, or perhaps interesting in a more aesthetic perspective, but I think to a media art audience it is possible that a lot of these projects will just not have enough concept. But this is what the community creates, and I like some of these projects, so I think I have 5 minutes. Good. So I'll show you some of these projects. So there was some work by Mario Klingemann called The Neural Glitch. So you can see some of his faces being generated. And he trained a GAN to randomly alter, delete, or exchange the trained weights. So this is how the images change and are generated. Then there is some work by Alex Champandal, who created these images inspired by Picasso's Cubist work, and also incorporated a new algorithm similar to style transfer, but his algorithm looks much more on the texture and the brush strokes, which I think the standard style transfer algorithm has always struggled with. And then we had some work from Sofia Crespo, which you might have seen already, because I think she's been taken up by a lot of exhibitions. And so she generated lots of imaginary creatures and animals using also a similar style transfer technique with I think with very little content. and some work by Daniel Ambrosi that looks at Impressionism and also incorporates Deep Dream there. So what I really like about the work of Daniel Ambrosi is that he combines computational photography with Deep Dream, but Deep Dream is always kind of somewhere in the background, so you can maybe discern some of the bright colors or kind of the odd shapes, but you can still recognize the realistic kind of structure of the scene. Some more work of his. Then I'm just running out of time, so what will I, okay, Scarf. So this is a cool implementation of, I guess, a GAN. So there was a group of researchers from India who generated these, I guess this is an elephant. So they generated images of animals, which they then worked with, and then they proceeded to work with people who, I guess, print and make scarves, and this became a physical object. And yes, another point to mention, there is a team of researchers there, and some of the artistic projects I mentioned here, like also this one, it does have multiple names, and this is something that I think the tech community likes to add to kind of any artwork they create, because when you frequently publish a scientific paper, there are multiple authors, and to them, I guess, a lot of the artwork or artistic projects they might do are similar, so they like to include all the names rather than, I don't know, one author claiming the top title or coming up as a collective, which I think perhaps is more frequent in the art world. But yeah, I'm just going to probably end on the sculpture called David, which is a representation of, I think, a point cloud converted into a sculpture. And there's also this sculpture project, which I won't talk about. But to me, this was a nice shift of this trend to use AI not only to generate images and text, but also to to make something physical and sculptural. So I think I was very happy to see the machine learning community work on that. And just the final slide, in case, once I get to it, in case you have any questions, here is my email, and you can also find me on Twitter. So thank you.
We have again a couple of minutes for questions. If there are any from the audience.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Brilliant. I think I have a question about, so you're putting these artworks on the way to the supermarket or the shopping mall.
Yeah.
So why do you think people would be interested in this particular kind of art? Not like paintings or landscapes or I don't know, whatever other art is available, but why this specific kind of art?
That is a very valid question. I guess when I was organizing this event, it was themed on kind of AI art. So obviously we were working with these artworks that are kind of AI generated. And out of the spectrum that we used, we picked the works by Sofia Crespo, which had these kind of invented creatures on a black background, and we printed them. So in some ways, it could have been similar to a photographic work or, I don't know, a painting, because it was like, quite physical in the end and non-digitally displayed. And yeah, I guess with the aim of the festival was to show the general public what AI can do in terms of art and maybe help to demystify it in some way. But I think, yeah, equally, these shopping centers could display other types of art because they have these empty spaces that are just kind of wasted, and I think it would be a good opportunity to put more art there of any kind to kind of engage the general public with it.
No other questions? Okay, then thank you a lot, Liva.